Carrying concealed weapons on college campuses. Joining us this morning, Dan Blackford, former Secret Service agent and a concealed handgun license instructor. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Jose. Thanks for having me on.
The issue, handguns on campus, where do you stand on it?
I'm a proponent of it. A couple of years ago during the 81st legislative session, they introduced a bill that passed the Senate side, went over to the House side, and died right there, that would allow students who were of lawful age and could legally obtain a CHL to carry on campus.
Couldn't problems develop with a student who just does not have the wherewithal, the intelligence to deal with a particular situation?
There's a lot of people who will take that side of the argument, but the statistics just don't support it. In the state of Texas, at any given time, there's over 400,000 active CHL licenses, yet out of all the crime in the state, concealed handgun license holders only make up 0.02%. So fact is, people who go through the trouble to get a CHL are usually good, knowledgeable, law-abiding citizens who will only use that firearm in a case of absolute last resort.
I was listening to radio yesterday because there was a lot of talk about the incident at UT, and they were calling college campuses no-gun zones, whereas if you're not on a college campus, you're allowed to have a concealed weapon if you have the proper paperwork.
Absolutely, and that's been an argument for some time now. Fact is, if a student is unstable, if they're angry, then what's to stop them from going to the local mall or gymnasium or any local college hangout and doing the exact same thing?
With a student on campus, if the guns were allowed on campus, would that be considered a first responder to a particular situation?
Absolutely not. We need to separate the ability to carry a concealed handgun as a matter of self-protection versus carrying a concealed handgun as a crime prevention tool. People who carry a CHL are under no legal obligation to prevent crime. That's not their job. That's the law enforcement's responsibility. So,
but if a person does have a gun and they have a concealed handgun license, they would be able to use it in a situation like that until the actual first responders arrive?
Well, the way the law reads is that if you feel like your life is in danger or you feel like your response is immediately necessary to protect the life of a third person, then yes, at that point you could use deadly force if the situation called for it, reasonable and necessary force. I think people are looking at the fact that it's students having a gun. Well, look beyond that. We're talking school administrators, faculty, teachers, who can probably respond in the same manner. They could lock down their classroom the same manner that they do now and be able to really secure that classroom or feel that they've secured that classroom because they have a firearm.
2 years ago, the state legislature did not fully pass the bill. The Senate passed it. It died in the House. What do you expect in the upcoming legislative session?
I would love to see it reintroduced. I think this is something that needs to be addressed at some point in time. The amount of violence that happens in and around school campuses, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often, but let's take Virginia Tech, for example. They locked the classrooms down, and it really didn't do a whole lot of good. The shooter who was at Virginia Tech was able to get in the classroom and then systematically shoot people there. So I think it's time that we have this debate. It's time for this discussion. Fact is, a lot of people will make the argument that guns are dangerous and guns are the problem. Guns are committing the crime, and that's just not the case. That's kind of making the same example of if you want to blame guns for the crime, then you have to blame spoons for causing obesity, and that's clearly not the case in our society. We send our kids to college, and when you go to college, you start learning how to be a lot more responsible. You learn how to be a grown-up. You're cutting those apron strings loose from mom and dad, and what more responsibility could someone take on than carrying a concealed handgun?
Well, the debate will continue, and we'll see what the next legislative session does. Dan Blackford, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
A concealed handgun license instructor. Thank you,
sir.
Melissa.
Turning to world news this morning, 7 people